Liar, a book by W.P. Thrift, read by name redacted, Chapter 3, New Phone. After returning to his apartment and feeding his cat, he stood and watched the cat ravenously chomping down on the dried fish-flavored food he'd brought it. Poor thing looked absolutely starved, almost as though it had never eaten before in its life, which, if it had just popped into existence, may well be the case. "I have a new phone," Larry told the cat. "A smartphone. It's top of the line." He reached into his pocket, and only his flip phone sat there waiting for him. HM. Larry left the kitchen where he'd chosen to place the cat's feed bowl, mostly because the tile floor would be easier to clean if he spilled anything, and went to his bedroom where he stood in front of a mirror. He pulled off his work clothes, the blazer and slacks, and stood staring at himself in his boxers for a moment before putting on his casual wear. He wasn't terribly out of shape, but certainly wasn't in any great shape either. He had too much hair on his body, and too little on his head. He wasn't fat enough to have a double chin, but if he tilted his head down, he certainly looked like a frog trying to puff his throat out to attract a mate. "I'm strong and handsome," Larry declared at the mirror. Nothing happened. Nothing changed. "I'm back to my high school weight." Nothing happened. Nothing changed. He sighed, his shoulders dropping. He crossed his arms and just stared himself in the eyes in the mirror, deep in thought. Why isn't anything happening? What I told Teresa was true happened. What I told Mike, what I told the vendor. It suddenly clicked for him. I have to tell someone what I want for it to happen. That's it. It doesn't work when I'm alone. I just have to tell someone something, and then it happens. Damn, I bet if I worded Mike's request for a convertible differently, he would have actually had one outside waiting for him. I did it sarcastically, though. I said, I wish, instead of taking it seriously. Sherbert poked its head into his bedroom and gave a soft meow, just curious what his owner was up to. That's probably what's going on, right, Sherbert? Larry asked the cat. That has to be it. What else could it be? Oh, I bet it takes two, because I'm needed to state the request, and someone else is needed to interpret it. And the results creates the new reality. That sounds right, doesn't it? Sherbert replied by walking on into the room and hopping up onto Larry's bed, stretching itself out in the center of it, and then collapsing down and curling up into a ball. Sherbert looked happy. Larry put on jeans, a white t-shirt and a dark brown jacket. It was the jacket he owned with the deepest pockets, so it was ideal for what he had decided to do. He was going to get his new phone, after all, and he was going to do it without magic so that he got the exact make and model he wanted. The phone that was nearly $4,000 at the store. His magic wasn't going to be his method of obtaining it, but instead it was going to be his fail-safe. If anyone catches me stealing it, I'll tell them I didn't, and presto, no more stolen phone on my person. This idea had sprung to mind before when he was passing by the store on his way back with the cat food, but he decided to try and conjure a phone into existence first. He just figured it would be less complicated that way. But when that failed, he made up his mind that he wanted to go through with this after all. Larry could have just waited a month for his new pay grade to kick in and buy a phone then, but this magic he'd found in himself was like a new toy to him, and he just had to play with it. He froze before leaving his bedroom, glancing back at the cat sleeping on his bed. Sherbert, am I seriously going to steal a phone because I'm bored enough to think exploiting powers beyond my understanding is a good idea? Should I just stay home and play with you instead? Sherbert had nothing to say on the matter. Larry smirked. Okay, Sherbert, the first hear you. He left his apartment and headed back to the phone store for the second time today. Kevin had been quite happy to see him again when he entered the store. One of the other two employees had now left the store, Larry assumed leaving for the day, and the other stood behind their own computer off to the side. All three sales associates, including Kevin, had their own computer to check customers out at. The security guard Cunningham remained next to the door as she'd been before. Larry struck up a bit of small talk with Kevin, saying that he just couldn't get over that phone he'd seen earlier, and asked if he could actually see it. It's just like the showpiece here, if you want to look this over. The phones in the back have even less on them than these, just a few default apps, Kevin explained. Annoyed that he couldn't just be shown one of the ones from the back so he could take off with one that wasn't bolted down, he decided to just go for it and told Kevin he was ready to buy one. Really? Kevin's expression flushed with genuine surprise, very quickly dropping into shock, before resuming his false smile facade, except his smile seemed a tiny bit less fake, marginally less like a plastic mask. "I'll go get it for you." Kevin returned with the phone, and Larry's brilliant idea was to simply ask to see it in another color. Kevin went to take that phone from him to bring it back, and Larry asked to keep it as he was still deciding. "I can't just leave merchandise on the floor. Not that I don't trust you, it's just store policy," Kevin said. Larry's eyes darted around. Cunningham was reading something on her phone, and the other employee was deep in thought. Neither were paying him any attention at all. Now was the perfect time to slip out with this thing. He could buy a phone plan from another store, slip the SD card in it, and a la Kazam. He'd have a functioning state-of-the-art smartphone. Then Larry racked his brain. "Actually, I want to buy 2 phones, one for someone else. So I do need to hold on to this one because I've decided to buy it. So could you get the red version?" "You could also buy a protective shell in red. The phone's silver case would never actually be seen beneath that," Kevin said. "And I'm not even trying to upsell you on this. Protective casing and screens are very important in this day and age to—" Kevin just kept talking for far too long before Larry had convinced him to go and get the second phone. The moment Kevin left the room, Larry slipped the new phone into his jacket pocket and zipped it up. Had Kevin returned a second later, he could just say he was trying to decide where to keep it and making sure it fit in his pockets or anything along those lines. It was an easy lie. For the time being, Larry just needed to get out of here. He started walking towards Cunningham, and she immediately began walking towards him. And wow! Larry's heart erupted into hyper-fast pounding, so much so that his ears began to ring. And then she walked straight past him. After a dry, slow gulp, Larry turned to see Cunningham stepping into the bathroom on the other side of the room. He couldn't help but crack a big smile as involuntary nervous laughter escaped him. This, however, drew the eyes of the other employee in the room. "Finding everything okay?" she asked. "Yep, Kevin has me handled." Larry turned and started to leave the store, the door being so close by. "Hey, sir?" the employee called over to him. "Weren't you just looking at a phone?" "Damn it, if I say I left it over there, then it'll teleport out of my pocket and back over there, right? If I say no, will it vanish also? I can't deny having looked at it, or something may change and I won't have it anymore." Being limited in his options of what to respond with, Larry went with, "I'm just headed to my car right quick, left something in it. I'll be right back, okay?" "Your car?" The employee could see the entire parking plot from here. It wasn't that large, and the front of the store was all glass, nothing obscuring the outside world at all. The only cars in the parking lot were the 4 employees' cars. "Yep," he replied, then pushed the door open and stepped out. He walked across the parking lot, in such a hurry to vanish around the corner, but before he could make it even halfway across the lot, the door to one of the employee-owned cars opened, and the employee that owned it stepped out. Larry had assumed the last employee had gone home for the day. Had he been paying more attention, he'd have seen her sitting in her car when he walked up. What she'd been doing there was anyone's guess. Maybe she'd just like to have her break there? "Hey, sir," she said. "I don't want to accuse you of anything, but it kind of looked like you put something in your jacket pocket before leaving the store." He looked back and realized the glass front of the store let anyone in the parking lot see the inside of the store just as clearly as anyone inside the store could see out. "Damn it, rest in peace, my new phone," Larry lamented. "I have to give it up to get away from here without consequences." "Nope, I didn't," Larry told her. "I didn't put anything in my pockets at all. My jacket pockets are both empty." "And it's done. Now if I just go to turn these pockets inside out—" He felt his jacket before unzipping it. There was very definitely still a lump inside of the pocket, a hard, rectangular lump. "Oh no!" "So, I'll just be on my way then," Larry followed up quickly, choosing not to turn his pockets inside out to show her they were empty after all. On account that they weren't. She didn't move to intercept him, instead staying right at the door of her car, almost ready to jump back into it if he'd approached her. Suited him fine. It meant nothing could stop him if he just kept going. A strong hand grabbed his arm. "Hey!" Larry called out as a knee-jerk response. Looking back, he saw Cunningham was right behind him, grabbing him. The other employee who'd spoken to him was standing in the doorway of the store. Apparently she hadn't believed him when he said something about his car and called Cunningham out of the bathroom. "Sir, I'm going to need to ask you to come with me," Cunningham said firmly. He tried to pull away from her, to just make a run for it, but she was so much stronger than he was. Her grip didn't give an inch as he tried to tug away from it, and in fact his struggling just caused her to grab his arm with her other hand and twist his arm behind his back. He gave a yelp of pain as she removed her right hand from his arm and moved it up to his shoulder, keeping her left hand around his wrist to keep his arm behind his back, as she turned him and marched him back towards the store. The employee held the door open for Cunningham to lead him back inside and off to a side room. Kevin emerged from the back room about that time, saying happily, "I found it. We did have it in red after all. Oh, huh?" Larry only glimpsed the confused face of Kevin for a moment before he was escorted out of the main room and into the side room, which was an office. He was shoved down into a chair in front of an office desk, and Cunningham stood behind him while another employee, the first one to spot him leaving the store, came into the room. She was the store manager, it turned out. He'd just assumed she worked in sales up until this point. Her name was Melissa, he noticed from the plaque on her desk. While his arm was free, he got the impression that if he made a run for it, he wouldn't get very far. "Before I call the police, do you have anything to say for yourself?" Melissa asked him. Larry suddenly felt like he was back in elementary school again, being sat in front of the principal's desk for doing something wrong, being stared down at accusingly, the principal telling him that he was about to call his mother. "Anything to say for yourself, young man?" The words of the principal echoed in the back of his mind. Larry wanted to try his magic again, and he spoke the words slowly, deliberately, carefully, making certain he hadn't simply misspoke earlier. "I didn't walk out of the store with anything. There's nothing in my jacket pockets." Cunningham pulled him back up to his feet, patted him down, found the lump in his pocket and unzipped the pocket to take the brand new phone back out. She also found his flip phone and wallet while searching him, and handed his ID to Melissa, who could now identify him to police even if he did choose to run. After that, he was allowed to sit back down. The fact that Cunningham hadn't searched him beforehand at least told him that she'd never been a cop before, and frankly didn't have that great of training or experience working in security. But what she lacked in experience, she more than made up for in sheer strength, so it's still not like he could escape from this situation through sheer force. Larry's mind raced. He needed to figure out how to get out of this situation. He wondered why his powers weren't working, but with Melissa moments away from dialing the cops, he couldn't think straight enough to figure out why his powers were failing him. "I could have been dead wrong about that power to begin with," Larry realized. "The cat could have been a prank. The money could have already been in my pocket. The trash could have been blown away when I wasn't looking. My powers may never have been real at all." He was on the cusp of a major, life-changing promotion, and he could be seconds away from losing everything if he went to jail for petty theft. Could he actually do prison time for this? Would his boss fire him if he found out? Look, please don't call the police," Larry begged, doing his best to sound sad and desperate. "I only tried to steal it because I'm acting out because—" He looked around the office. Melissa leaned forward, listening to him. He waited patiently for him to speak. She actually did seem like she was curious to see what he had to say. He looked behind her. She had a large bookshelf, but it had no books on it. Instead, it just had framed photos standing up, displaying photos of her with her husband and 2 kids. At least a dozen photos of them playing in the park, at a beach somewhere, at their home, always having fun together. There were a couple other photos of 2 old people holding a couple babies, her parents holding her kids when they were young. Her parents didn't appear in any of the other pictures of the kids when they were older. Larry could only wonder why. She's close to her family. Go for that angle. "I just had a death in the family," Larry said, forcing his voice to crack when he spoke. "It just hit me very hard is all. So I did something stupid, because I just needed to force all the bad thoughts out of my mind, if only for a moment. The thrill of trying to do something like this helped me clear my head. Look, I'm sorry, I'll never do it again. I'll take up skydiving or something instead, okay?" Melissa leaned back in her chair, staring at him. He couldn't read her poker face. She sighed. "I know how bad a death in the family can mess a person up, but you need to find a real grief counselor and not try to fix yourself by yourself. Understand?" "Why ease, ma'am?" Larry said quickly, almost eagerly. "I'll look one up as soon as I leave here." "You're still banned from the store, of course, but you do have my sympathies. With that, Larry was free to go. He was handed his wallet and flip phone back, and allowed to leave with Cunningham escorting him so closely behind that he could feel her breathing down the back of his neck. Larry returned to his apartment as quickly as possible, furious that his attempt to steal a phone had blown up in his face so spectacularly. He didn't even care that he'd gotten away scot-free, as he felt like he never should have been caught to begin with. He was more certain than ever that he couldn't just speak things into existence. Clearly he'd been a part of some kind of elaborate hoax, and he didn't find it the least bit funny. He reached the door to his apartment, and he put a hand on the knob while fumbling around for his key. But the knob gave way. He was able to turn it. His apartment was unlocked. I know I locked it. I'm certain I did. Wait, no, did the person that planted the cat come back? Opened the door. He saw someone sitting on his couch, her back turned to him. He recognized her bouncy blonde hair with a ponytail anywhere. She was his sister, Kimberly. Kim! Larry tried and failed not to shout. Came back for your cat? I can't believe you'd fly all the way across America without telling me just to play a prank like this. But when Mike said he didn't do it, I should have known. The only other person with a key was... Kimberly turned to him, tears running down her face, eyes and nose both red and puffy. She was sobbing too hard to get any words out. Larry's mouth snapped shut the second he saw her face, his words dying immediately. He moved quickly across his apartment to go to her, kneeling down beside her and asking what was wrong. It's Mom! Kimberly choked the words out between harsh, gasping breaths. She passed away, Larry. Our mom's dead.